There's a lot of information that is swirling around right now, and we collectively are going to do everything possible to get to the bottom of this, to get justice, and to make sure that there is an investigation that is conducted in full. But what we do know is that a 37-year-old woman is dead and that she was shot by ICE. We've dreaded this moment since the early stages of this ICE presence in Minneapolis. Not only is this a concern that we've had internally, we've been talking about it. They are not here to cause safety in this city. What they are doing is not to provide safety in America. What they are doing is causing chaos and distrust. They're ripping families apart. They're sowing chaos on our streets, and in this case, quite literally killing people. So they are already trying to spin this as an action of self-defense. Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, that is. This was an agent recklessly using power that resulted in somebody dying, getting killed. As soon as it happened and we learned of the incident, we had several priorities. The first, of course, was to get the victim to the hospital and to get care as soon as possible. To the family, I'm so deeply sorry. There's nothing that I can say right now that's going to make you or your relatives or the friends of the victim feel any better. There were, I believe, 2 Minneapolis police officers that responded and were in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. The second was to get ICE off of the scene. There were dozens, if not hundreds, of ICE and federal officers that were there at the time. Having them there was only causing more chaos. Having them there was only making a difficult situation even more problematic, and one that, yes, they created themselves. There's little I can say, again, that'll make this situation better, but I do have a message for our community, for our city, and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the f*** out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. People are being hurt. Families are being ripped apart. Long-term Minneapolis residents that have contributed so greatly to our city, to our culture, to our economy are being terrorized, and now somebody is dead. That's on you.
All right, let's get right to CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro. He's live now with reaction from the White House to all of this. Aaron, the president is weighing in on the incident on Truth Social. What is he saying?
He wrote on Truth Social, quote, "It's a horrible thing to watch," but then added, the woman driving the car, in his words, was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer who seems to have shot her in self-defense. That bit about running over the ICE officer seems to be disputed by many of the local officials, including Governor Walz, as well as some of the video that we're seeing. President Trump also added the situation is being studied in its entirety and that the ICE officer that has been claimed to be hit or attempted to be run over is in the hospital and is alive and is doing all right. He went on to add that the reason these incidents are happening is because the radical left is threatening, assaulting, and targeting our law enforcement officers. I also want to note that in this long post reacting to what happened in Minnesota, he also shared a clip, a different angle of the vehicle and the shooting than what has primarily been going through being posted on social media, a bit further of an angle, but where you can see the car seem to swipe the ICE officer that shot through the front of the vehicle. That's been something that President Trump shared on Truth Social and is starting to gain more steam among conservative circles on social media.
This morning, we learned that an ICE officer shot and killed someone in Minneapolis. My deepest condolences to the family, to the loved ones who had to learn about this tragic event on national television. We have been warning for weeks that the Trump administration's dangerous, sensationalized operations are a threat to our public safety, that someone was going to get hurt. Just yesterday, I said exactly that. What we're seeing is the consequences of governance designed to generate fear, headlines, and conflict. It's governing by reality TV, and today that recklessness cost someone their life. I've reached out to Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and I'm waiting to hear back. Let me be clear, Donald Trump and his administration may not care much about Minnesota. That's been pretty evident, but we love this state. We won't let them tear us apart. We'll not turn against each other. To Minnesotans, I say this: I feel your anger. I'm angry. They want a show. We can't give it to them. We cannot. If you protest and express your First Amendment rights, please do so peacefully, as you always do. We can't give them what they want. The hearts and minds of the people in this state are on our side. To Americans, I ask you this: please stand with Minneapolis. To Minnesotans, know that our administration is going to stop at nothing to seek accountability and justice. The State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension are working on the investigation. We have activated the State Emergency Operations Center. State Patrol and Minnesota National Guard leadership is connected with the Minneapolis Police Department, the St. Paul Police Department, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, the DNR, and Minnesota's Homeland Security and Emergency Management. We have activated dozens of members of the State Patrol's mobile response team. And from here on, I have a very simple message. We do not need any further help from the federal government. To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough. There's nothing more important than Minnesotan safety. I've issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community, they're business owners, they're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. We will not take the bait. We will continue to update you, Minnesota, as we get more information.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I want to start out by addressing the loss of life that we saw here in Minneapolis today. Any loss of life is a tragedy, and I think all of us can agree that in this situation it was preventable. I've spoken to the president today on the situation here on the ground. I also just got off the phone a little while ago with Governor Walz and spoke to him as well. I want to reiterate first with all of you the facts of what happened today. At 10:25 a.m. Central Time, Immigration and Customs Enforcement were carrying out lawful operations here in Minneapolis. Because of the adverse weather that Minneapolis has seen in recent snow, one of the vehicles became stuck and ensnared in the snow. Law enforcement were attempting to push out this vehicle, and when a mob of agitators that were harassing them all day began blocking them in, shouting at them, and impeding law enforcement operations. ICE officers and agents approached the vehicle of the individual in question, who was blocking the officers in with her vehicle, and she had been stalking and impeding their work all throughout the day. ICE agents repeatedly ordered her to get out of the car and to stop obstructing law enforcement, but she refused to obey their commands. She then proceeded to weaponize her vehicle, and she attempted to run a law enforcement officer over. This appears as an attempt to kill or to cause bodily harm to agents, an act of domestic terrorism. The ICE officer, fearing for his life and the other officers around him and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training to save his own life and that of his colleagues. He was treated at a local hospital, has been released, and is now with family. I encourage the American people at this point in time to pray for him, but also to pray for the deceased's family and her loved ones. Today alone in this country, there have been 4 different domestic terrorist attacks on federal officers by the ramming of vehicles. 3 of them happened here in Minneapolis. We've seen over 100 of these vehicle rammings happen in just recent weeks, and this must stop. ICE alone is facing a 1,300% increase in assaults against them and an 8,000% increase in death threats against all of them. In fact, the very same officer who was attacked today had previously been dragged by an anti-ICE rioter who had rammed him with a car and drug him back in June. He sustained injuries at that time as well. And let me remind you why we're all here in this city today and why we've been here. In communities across this country and here in Minneapolis, we're just enforcing the laws that we have in this country. For years under President Biden, tens of millions of dangerous criminal illegal aliens, terrorists, and suspected terrorists were allowed to invade our country over our southern border. They were allowed to steal, to defraud, and to perpetuate violence against American citizens. Regardless of who your mayor or who your governor is, President Trump promised every single American that he would make America safe again. He promised every single American that he would work to protect them from dangerous criminals.
Why do you think the Trump administration is so fixated on Minnesota right now?
Well, I wish I knew. I mean, I wish they would just leave us. I mean, seriously. What is the, when do things stop being about politics and start being about actual human decency? And so, I mean, I'm sure we can all hypothesize on what all of their political reasons are. But meanwhile, a woman died being shot in her car. And everything that they're doing is making it worse and not better. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Speaker, what's your reaction to the Minnesota shooting from an ICE agent?
I just saw the disturbing video. Obviously, it's a serious situation. There's going to be a full investigation, as we all know and expect. Look, it appears to us, I guess, anybody who sees the video from certain angles, that the driver of the vehicle weaponized that vehicle against law enforcement officers and against bystanders. It was a dangerous situation. People make snap judgments in those situations, and it's a really sad outcome. Look, I do think that it's right. I think I guess maybe it was Homeland or someone put out a statement that this clearly appears to be the result of this just months-long rhetoric against law enforcement and people encouraging that kind of violence. And so we call upon all the citizens of Minneapolis to be calm. We don't want anyone to be hurt. We need law enforcement to be able to do their jobs, and it's a terrible situation. But we await.
So you don't think there's oversight? There's any chance the officer did anything wrong?
Do you believe it's domestic terrorism?
I don't know. I wasn't there, and neither were you. And it's wrong for people to jump to these conclusions without a full investigation. You have to find out the facts on the ground, and I think that will happen. I'm confident it will.
Should ICE get out? Should ICE invade Minneapolis?
We got to be able to know 445 guys. Do you think all the Democrats appropriations process would rein in DHS at all?
They need to allow DHS.
Can you react to what happened with this ICE officer, the shooting in Minneapolis, and you've been supportive of the work of ICE over the last year? Do you think that they were at fault here?
I mean, it's devastating. I mean, it's an absolute tragedy. My heart goes out to her family. I mean, I don't know the circumstances. I haven't seen the actual video, but a life is lost. I mean, it's a tragedy, and absolutely. And my views. I support ICE about deporting criminals. I don't support and understand if you want to target otherwise hardworking people. I don't support that. I never have on that. I remain pro strongly immigration, and that's never going to change. So here we are now, where a woman's dead, and that's tragedy. And we'll know the circumstances. I'm not going to make any judgment other than just express my sympathy for the family. I mean, just what a tragedy.
The mayor of Minneapolis says that ICE should get PF out of their city. Do you think they should get out?
I mean, I'm not that close to the kind of violence and the tragedy, so I don't want to judge that. But for me, I think it's all probably always more helpful to turn the temperature down and just withhold, the kinds of extremes, to say, hey, let's everybody, turn the temperature down. Honestly, whether that's coming from some kinds of the rhetoric from Secretary Noem or the president, or whether the mayor or governor. It's really, let's just turn down the temperature, and we can't forget someone's lost their life, and now we have to investigate the circumstances, because that should never happen.
Let me be clear. President Trump and his entire administration stand fully behind the heroic men and women of ICE and will always uphold law and order in the United States of America. The deadly incident that took place in Minnesota yesterday occurred as a result of a larger, sinister, left-wing movement that has spread across our country, where our brave men and women of federal law enforcement are under organized attack. Right now, immigration and customs enforcement officers are facing a 1,200% increase in assaults, a 3,200% increase in vehicle rammings, and an 8,000% increase in death threats. ICE agents are faithfully enforcing federal law to protect the safety of the American people by removing criminal illegal aliens from our country, which is exactly what nearly 80 million Americans elected President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance to do. Radicals in the Democrat Party are furious over this. They don't want our border secured or criminal illegal aliens being removed. As a result, Democrats are impeding immigration enforcement operations daily, creating extremely heightened and dangerous circumstances that make it nearly impossible for the men and women of law enforcement to simply do their jobs. Democrats are calling to defund federal law enforcement agencies who are protecting public safety. And Democrats are calling to abolish ICE and defund the police. That will never be allowed to happen under this president and vice president. The Trump administration will redouble our efforts to get the worst of the worst, criminal illegal alien killers, rapists, and pedophiles off of American streets. The Department of Homeland Security will continue to operate on the ground in Minnesota, not only to remove criminal illegal aliens, but also to continue conducting door-to-door investigations of the rampant fraud that has taken place in the state under the failed and corrupt leadership of Democrat Governor Tim Walz.
Their free speech rights. The president himself has asserted that, in fact, one of the reasons that this murder may have been quote-unquote justified is on free speech grounds. So this is now turned into what our greatest fear is, and has been for a long time around ICE, that this will be used as an anti-civilian force, that it has no accountability. At the end of the day, what we saw today is a murder. And murders in cold blood need to be prosecuted. And we've seen what happened to this woman for, I believe it was just a few blocks away from where George Floyd was murdered. And what we need to see is this incident prosecuted. What we saw today was a criminal murder a woman and shoot her in the head while she was trying to escape and flee for her life. And I think what we saw today was a manifestation of every American's worst nightmare, which is their government turning into a tyranny.
Do you believe he should be arrested, the officer involved?
I think what we saw was a murder today, and I think that we need, of course.
When I was actually walking out here, somebody sent me a photo of a CNN headline about what happened in Minneapolis. And this is the headline. I'm just going to read it. Outrage after ICE officer kills U.S. citizen in Minneapolis. Well, that's one way to put it, and that is the way that many people in the corporate media have put this attack over the last 24 hours. And I say attack very, very intentionally, because this was an attack on federal law enforcement. This was an attack on law and order. This was an attack on the American people. The way that the media, by and large, has reported this story has been an absolute disgrace, and it puts our law enforcement officers at risk every single day. What that headline leaves out is the fact that that very ICE officer nearly had his life ended, dragged by a car 6 months ago, 33 stitches in his leg. So you think maybe he's a little bit sensitive about somebody ramming him with an automobile? What that headline leaves out is that that woman was there to interfere with a legitimate law enforcement operation in the United States of America. What that headline leaves out is that that woman is part of a broader left-wing network to attack, to dox, to assault and to make it impossible for our ICE officers to do their job. If the media wants to tell the truth, they ought to tell the truth that a group of left-wing radicals have been working tirelessly, sometimes using domestic terror techniques to try to make it impossible for the President of the United States to do what the American people elected him to do, which is enforce our immigration laws. The President stands with ICE. I stand with ICE. We stand with all of our law enforcement officers. And part of that is recognizing that you people in the media, not everybody in this room, but many people in this room have been lying about this attack. She was trying to ram this guy with her car. He shot back. He defended himself. He's already been seriously wounded in law enforcement operations before, and everybody who's been repeating the lie that this is some innocent woman who was out for a drive in Minneapolis when a law enforcement officer shot at her, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Every single one of you.
It's deeply disturbing. That ICE officer needs to be arrested and he needs to be put on trial. That was an excessive use of force. And I've got to tell you, I was just at an ICE detention center in California, the California City Immigration Detention Center. I went with a staff member and I talked to 47 detainees. It is horrific what we're doing to these detainees in this country. They had rocks in their food. Someone had blood in his urine and was denied any health care, no procedure to be able to see a doctor. They could not see their family members. They had a glass wall separating them. They were complaining about the drinking water. We have to, as a country, recognize that we're not treating people as the Bible and the Christian faith teaches us in terms of respect, and it's outrageous. And it's outrageous what happened in Minnesota. I think we need to be peaceful. We need to focus on how we can get accountability. I certainly don't support any kind of rioting or disobedience in that kind of unlawful way. But what we need is accountability for this ICE officer.
Let me first say that the killing of Renee Nicole Good was an abomination, a disgrace. And blood is clearly on the hands of those individuals within the administration who've been pushing an extreme policy that has nothing to do with immigration enforcement connected to removing violent felons from this country. We support the removal of violent felons from this country who are here illegally. But that's not what this administration has been doing under the so-called leadership of Kristi Noem, who's a stone-cold liar. There's no evidence at all that this was a justified shooting. So let's deal with the tragedy right now. She hasn't even been buried. Her family is grieving. She was a single mom and an American citizen. And we all are outraged by what took place in Minneapolis, and we will respond decisively.
It is. Sure. Go ahead. Go ahead. And I just want to, I watched the video. You felt like your stomach was being punched. Looking at the video, there seemed no justification for what these agents did. There needs to be a full investigation at the federal level, although I have little faith in the FBI at doing a fair investigation, or DHS, but at the local level as well.